let's jump right in. We're going to talk about something that hits home for all of us eventually. That feeling of just getting older. But what if that nagging fatigue, that feeling of slowing down, wasn't something we just have to accept? In this explainer, we're diving into a source that's asking a pretty wild question. What if aging is less about how many candles are on your cake and more about the environment our cells are living in every single day?
So this is really the heart of it, isn't it? Is feeling old just inevitable? I mean, we've all been there. You think, man, I'm just more tired than I used to be. I guess this is just what happens. Well, the material we're looking at today says, hold on a second, and it's going to challenge that whole idea head on.
And here's the core idea from our source. It's asking us to completely reframe how we think about this. Aging isn't some specific illness we need to cure. Instead, think of it as a shift in our energy, both mentally and physically, that totally changes how we experience our day-to-day lives.
So this brings us to our first big topic. We need to rethink what getting older even means. The source material suggests that maybe, just maybe, the link between the year you were born and how you actually feel is a lot weaker than we've been led to believe.
And look at these signs. I mean, they're super relatable, right? We're talking about that general fatigue, the little aches and pains that pop up out of nowhere, not sleeping as deeply as you used to, or just that mental fog. But here's the kicker. The source claims these aren't just signs of hitting your 50s or 60s. It says they can start showing up as early as 25 or 30.
All right, so if it's not just about time marching on, what's really going on? Well, according to this document, we have to zoom way in, down to the microscopic level, to find the real root of the problem.
The source points to 5 main cellular culprits. Now you've got epigenetics, which is how your lifestyle talks to your genes, telomere shortening, kind of like the tips of your shoelaces fraying on your DNA, mitochondrial dysfunction, which is basically a power failure inside your cells, and stem cell exhaustion. But the source argues that the one that really kicks it all off, the one that affects all the others, is number 5, chronic silent inflammation.
So what is that? Well, imagine there's a constant, low-level hum of static in your body. You don't feel it like a sharp pain, but it's always there, this low-grade inflammation that is slowly, day by day, wearing down your tissues. The source calls this the incipit, which is just a fancy word for the spark, the starting point. It's seen as the trigger that can lead to a whole bunch of other health problems down the road. So where is this silent battle happening? The document points to a place we almost never think about, the extracellular matrix. This is the gel-like stuff, the fluid between all our cells. It's the world they swim in, it's what gives them structure, lets them talk to each other, and brings them food. It's basically their entire universe. And to make this super clear, the source uses this brilliant metaphor. Think of an aquarium. On one hand, you have a healthy matrix. It's like a beautiful, clean fish tank. The water is clear, it's full of oxygen, and the fish, those are your cells, are just thriving. But on the other hand, you have an intoxicated matrix, and that's like a dirty, neglected aquarium, where the water is murky, stagnant, and full of junk. In that tank, the cells suffer. They get sick, and they age a whole lot faster. And this is the dream, right? To have this clean, internal environment where all our cells can just do their jobs perfectly. Now, the source says the dirtying of this water isn't random. It's tied to real-world stuff, chronic stress, a diet that's out of whack, pollution. All of it contributes to that silent inflammation we just talked about.
Okay, so that picture sounds a little grim. But hey, if the aquarium is dirty, the good news is you can clean it, right? So let's get to the next part and see what the source proposes we do about it.
This is where the source brings up a specific product. It's a supplement called 22.22 New Cell Code, and it's described as being designed to work directly on that environment, the extracellular matrix, with the pretty bold goal of creating a new communication code for our cells. So how is it supposed to do that? Well, the process is broken down into 3 steps. First, it aims to restore the proper flow of fluids in the matrix, basically to flush out all that dirty water. Second, it aims to reduce that chronic inflammation at the source. And third, the goal is to return the cells to their happy, natural state of balance, which scientists call homeostasis.
Now, this all sounds really interesting in theory, but it brings us to the big question, the one you're probably asking right now. Okay, but is there any proof? Does this stuff actually work? Let's get into our last section and look at the data that's reported in the document.
First up, the source points to some preliminary lab data from a study with the University of Torino. Now, it's really important to stress the word preliminary here. These are early findings, not the final word on the matter.
So what did this early look find? Well, a few things. First, that the product wasn't toxic to the cells they tested it on. Second, the data suggested it might have a potential anti-inflammatory effect. And finally, it appeared to have an influence on immune cells, helping to dial down the bad ones that create inflammation and boost the good ones that fight it.
But that's not the only data presented. The source also includes results from a completely different kind of study, a user survey. This was based on voluntary questionnaires from a group of people after using the product for 90 days. So, of course, we're talking about how people felt, their subjective perceptions, which is a very different thing from hard lab data. And the numbers reported from this survey are, well, pretty eye-popping. According to the source, 100%, every single person reported an improvement in their mood and felt a reduction in stress.
On the physical side of things, 94% said they noticed a decrease in their general aches and pains.
And for something that is so crucial to our well-being, sleep, a solid 85% said they saw a noticeable improvement in the quality of their rest.
But maybe the most telling piece of data, the one that really sums up the whole experience for these users, came from the answer to one very, very direct question they were asked. When asked if they'd be willing to stop, 100% of them said no. And that brings us right back to where we started, back to that big question. But now, maybe we're looking at it in a whole new light. Can we actually rewrite our cellular code? You know, after looking at the information in this document, from that aquarium metaphor to the preliminary data, the whole idea of taking control of our cellular health feels, I don't know, maybe a little less like science fiction. The source puts this really bold concept out there and ultimately invites us to think about the limits of our own biology.